everyone, so second video review for this week is for Honey in the Marrow by Emily Waters. If you want to check out my review, I have just posted that, so if you're on YouTube there's a link in the description below, and if you're on Facebook or on my blog then there's a link within the post. And this is the video review. So Honey in the Marrow by Emily Waters. This was very sweet. Stella's adjusting to being a widow following the death of her husband. Her niece comes to stay, and suddenly an old acquaintance, Elizabeth, is back in her life. So the tension between Stella and Elizabeth is quite intense until Elizabeth becomes someone that Stella finds herself really relying on, and they realise that they kind of have more in common and something more attracting them to one another than they'd ever really considered before. So being an ex-lawyer and an LAPD captain made Stella and Elizabeth really kind of interesting pairing, because they'd worked together in the past, so they were already acquaintances, and then it's Stella's niece that sort of brings Elizabeth back into Stella's life in a more prominent role than she has had recently. And because they had that history, that made things between them kind of complicated and a little bit more intense. And really it was Elizabeth who had to do a lot of the pushing. Stella was in a place that she just wasn't going to push for anything. She didn't understand what was going on. She didn't really want to try and process it. She was already processing enough. So it was down to Elizabeth to really get Stella to trust her and open up, and for them to sort of form some sort of relationship that could then develop. So they did have an amazing connection when they started to get along. But even at the beginning, when Stella was just clearly just tolerating Elizabeth, and tolerating is the word, honestly, she was literally tolerating her, because her niece insisted on it. That was literally the only reason. They still had this amazing connection. They had this chemistry. You just knew they were going to, something had to form between them. They got along too well, even when it was just tolerating. And I loved how they helped each other grow. They were going through really hard times, both of them. They'd both been through the same thing, but it affected them differently. So Stella was dealing with the death of her husband, but for Elizabeth, he'd been a colleague and she'd been there when it happened, and they both needed to heal. And so to have each other to help each other heal was lovely. But when they started getting along, they shared such cute moments, because they had that familiarity from the past and a shared experience from different angles. But they were supportive and attentive, and no matter how much Stella tried to ignore her feelings and fight them, because she did a lot, it was undeniable that them being in one another's lives was really good for each other, and that if they continued to develop, they would find something amazing. So it was a lovely romance about the struggles and fears of two older women coming to terms with truly being themselves and telling their families, and then finding this second chance a little bit later in their lives for happiness. Just a really lovely story, and I really did enjoy it, so I hope you will too. I'll pop a link in the description so you can go and grab a copy of Honey in the Marrow by Emily Waters, which I hope you will. If you've read Honey in the Marrow, it would be great to hear what you thought of the stories. Please do comment, please do let us know. If you haven't read it yet but you're planning to read it, it's on your read list, or you're now super intrigued and thinking I really want to read that, again, please do comment, please do let us know, because it's always great to find out what you're interested in reading. And if you do read it, I hope you enjoy it. Bye.